Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is that you're watching this. My name is Lori Krajewski, and this is Coffee with Vicki today. Vicki is a educator. She's an artist. She's an actress. She's a speaker, and she is a writer. Her natural love of learning and helping others improve is inspiring, and she has a passion for creating new breath into improving people's lives of all ages and cultures. Her latest book is Love Remembers. Is that correct?
That's the first book, and the second book is called A Sister's Love.
A Sister's Love. That's the one we're going to talk about primarily today, yes?
We can talk about both because both of them they dovetail in terms of the memory part, and then the Sister's Love increases advocacy and commitment and miracles happening when you really commit to something.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what I'm reading is that the Love Remembers is regarded as the bedrock of word association, visual imagery, and neural branch growth. So let's just dive into that. Tell me what all of that means, and welcome. It's very nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. I'll dive in. It was 1983. And my uncle on my mother's side, who was the emotional, caring, loving, artistic side of the family, was told he had Alzheimer's disease, and his wife put him in a nursing home against his wishes. She promised him if he signed the house over to her that she would never do that, and she did. So he was calling me. I lived in San Diego at the time. He lived in LA. And he was calling me saying, get me out of here, get me out of here. And so I went to see an attorney in LA, and I said, how do I help my uncle? And he said, since you're a niece and not a daughter, you don't have as much control, but this memory system that you're teaching to kids, if you could prove it works with Alzheimer's, then a judge is going to let you see your uncle and spend time with him and do the memory system with him. So I went to the dean of the community college in San Diego, told him my plight. We ended up chatting for 2 hours. And at the end of the 2 hours, he just said, go heal my people. And he said, I'm going to make you a communication specialist and put you in different assisted living places and just go try it out. So in 1983, I was at a place called the Alzheimer's Family Center in San Diego. And then I was at 2 other live-in assisted living places. And it took me 4 months before I could get the Alzheimer's people to recall. And that seemed like a long time to me, but then I found out there were people working for 30 years that had never accomplished that. And what I found was if they had something that was emotionally, powerfully wonderful, and if they acted it out, along with making associations with the connections with the words, they could recall. And this particular group, it was their wedding day. And one woman was talking about the kiss. Another guy was talking about the monkey grinder that they had at the wedding. Another man said that he and his wife played golf on their honeymoon. So I hired an artist in between, one session to the next. And then I showed a picture of the golfer and said, who was that? And the guy said, was that me? And then I said, who was the kiss? And this woman, Helen, said, oh, that was me. And so they remembered.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So it was really amazing. And I wanted to get 60 Minutes, to know about that. But at the time, the world was not saying that they would buy into the brain regenerating. And yet from the work I was doing with them, I was finding regeneration happening in my own brain and in their brains.
Yeah.
But it took another 30 years before the world now knows that neurogenesis is very commonplace.
And neuroplasticity, right?
Right. Neuroplasticity, which basically means that You know, when I tell people the brain is like a tree in the springtime, and the squirrels are like synapses, and they're jumping from tree branch to tree branch, which is making the little message signals. When they have dementia or an illness or Alzheimer's, they have tired squirrels, and and the squirrels die and the branches decay. But
Okay.
with a memory system that I teach is like the springtime, and the cavalry comes in with fresh squirrels and new branches, and everybody's reconnected again.
Well, I love the imagery. I love that. And what a shame that it took so long for, before we started recording, we were talking about how hard it can be to really get solutions out there and really get people to hear that there are things we can do, and not only things that we can do, but that we should do. What kind of world would we live in if we all started doing work on our brain now?
Well, that's
What
just
would
it.
it look like if we worked with our brain before we have evidence of any issues?
You know, I've talked to people and she said, my mom's starting to slip now at, 87 or 92, but at least I know about you. So if I start slipping, and I said, well, why wouldn't you start now to make sure you wouldn't slip? So, well, I'm busy. I've got this, I've got that. My luck is that I learned this when I was 26, and now I'm 68. And because I learned it and taught it and practiced it and continued to teach it and had jobs doing this, I ended up with extra neural foliage. So when I did have a very severe car accident, my brain was able to recover more easily than I would have had that not happened to me.
I assume a concussion.
Oh, I got hit by a big rig truck, and I was in an AMC Eagle Jeep. Thank God. If I'd been in a Volkswagen, that I wouldn't be here today.
Oh
But
my.
the truck, basically, it was a morning, it was raining, guy was on the truck, I was in his blind spot, and he hit me, and then he hit me again, and then he hit me again. And it took about 6 to 8 years to recover.
Wow.
But but I'm back. And then I learned that when you're slow, when you're having, my brother said to me in his infinite wisdom, he said, you've always had a good brain, but this will help you in your future with future patients, because then you'll know what it's like to have an injured brain. And so when I teach the memory system, I usually teach it the normal way, where I teach how the mind works, how we naturally learn, how the memory system fits in with how we naturally learn. And then I teach a method of association and linking. And then we do lists and goals. And then I go on to the sounds like method, which is how to make information tangible. And then once it's tangible, then you make associations. Then you use it for names and speeches and scripts. And we just move like that. But an injured brain, I couldn't do, 7 to 8, linking words at a time. And in fact, I could hardly even do a word. So I would I would go through the alphabet in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And I'd say A, and then an ape would come to my mind. I'd think of Coco, and then Coco playing with a little bee on her finger. And then as I would repeat it, then her features started to come in more, her facial expressions started to come in deeper, the feel of her hands. I could see the imagination of a little bee's light little feet playing on her with her gentle fur. So each time I did it, it enhanced more and more. And then I could see that I was improving more and more. But I was still having a lot of pain in my head. Any kind of concentration hurt the top of my head, the back of my head. So I had to go very slowly and breathe very deeply and just do like 3. And then I was exhausted. So I've designed a course that I'm actually doing this weekend on Saturday, tomorrow Saturday and the following Saturday, just for brain injured people. So that we're going very slowly and teaching them, breath and connection and visualization, and then the sensory, tactile imagery, as well as the feeling. So they can go slow, and then as they get better and better, they can do more and more. And then, I'd say A, B, C, D, E, F, and then go all the way to Z, little by little by little.
So bear with me as we rewind a little bit. Because I do these interviews pretty blind, and I don't really know a lot about what you do. Let's kind of go back to the beginning, and what exactly is it called? And do you kind of call it brain retraining?
Yeah. Yeah, I call it now brain retraining. I was
Okay.
just calling it memory training, but people think of memory as repetition and boring, and it's none of that. It's creative and it's visual and it's
Or I don't have a problem with my memory. I don't need that.
I was thinking this morning, about that, and I thought, well, if you don't have to have trouble walking to be able to walk. You walk on, I'm out right now on a little vacation, a work vacation, where I'm walking on the beach. I had a friend visit me, and so every night we'd share dinner and we'd walk and watch the sunset, and it was just so much fun. And I said, and then I looked at my face. We took a picture 4 days later when we went out to dinner, and I looked at my face and I thought, my God, I look really good. And I thought, well, it's all the fresh air and the exercise. And, in Denver, I'll walk, but it's not with the wind blowing and not on the beach. And there's a difference. And I thought, if you're doing memory training in your 20s, I started teaching at K through 12, and I was like, these kids are all going to be geniuses before they graduate. Once you have all that extra neural foliage and you have access to not just your own natural memory, but it opens up to the DNA and the RNA that from your lineage. So
Oh, wow.
you start getting all of the abilities from your parents and your grandparents and your grandparents' parents. So, and I learned about that when I went to Russia, and I was with the tour guide, and every building I would literally get like an energy in my arms kind of going, doo, 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 doo. And she said, Vika, everything that you are pointing to is pre-war. And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, well, my grandmother's cells remember the events, and that went from her body into my mother's, and from my mother's into me, and I'm reactivating it by physically being here. And that's when I started to realize there was genetic recall.
There is absolutely genetic recall. It is right down in our DNA. And I think that I could talk about just that component for days, because I had a similar experience. We were on vacation in, where were we? Puerto Vallarta. I knew where the church was. I knew where the shops were. I knew how to navigate the town. And at one point, it came so naturally to me that I didn't even notice. But, my husband looked at me and he's like, how do you know? And I stopped and I went, whoa, how do I know? It really freaked me out when I stopped and thought about, I've never been here. How could I possibly know exactly where the church was? It's in the DNA. Somehow, somewhere in my lineage, somebody must have lived in that town and went to church and did the store and did all of the things. That fascinates me.
Yeah, there's soul memory too.
Yes. That's actually a lot of the work that I do. I can't tell you how much I love this conversation. So back to you. If somebody is watching this and they're new and they don't really know anything about this, what might the general population get from this? Not, not just somebody maybe that's noticing some memory loss, or maybe, actually has a diagnosis of mild dementia or some other neuro challenges, like you said, an accident. I just met a gentleman last night who fell off of a roof and had a significant head injury, and he's in pain every day, every single day. He's lucky to be alive, but he said, am I lucky to be alive? I don't have a life anymore.
Yeah, for that, he needs cranial sacral therapy. The slow memory system, like he would benefit from the class tomorrow and next Saturday. And then there's something called the balloon treatment. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't.
There's you basically take it's like a rubber about as big as your finger, and go into the 3 different nasal cavities on each side of the nose that goes into the brain.
Oh,
And you have to have someone who really knows what they're doing.
yeah.
And they go in, usually it's a chiropractor who knows how to do it, and you go in and it pops and go again, pop and again, pop. And then you can actually think again. It like opens up your brain so you can think. Because when I got hit by the truck, I flew to Montana to see Dr. Binder because I said, Dr. Binder, I can't pack and vacuum. Like, it's too much for me to do both. And now I'm scared the plane's going to crash. And he said, don't worry, the plane's not going to crash. We'll do the balloon treatment once you get here. And then he also did adjustments, and he did cranial treatment, and then he did homeopathic treatment. And that, along with the memory system, made the biggest difference in my recovery. But if I didn't have those things, one doctor said you'd be in a nursing home drooling, so
Wow.
you really, I've been, I've had bad luck, but I've had good luck. And the good luck is that I know how to recover from, these things.
You already had some tools in your toolbox to help you through that.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really lucky in that respect. And a brain injury when the doctors say you're as good as you're going to get, it's not true. But it does take about 6 to 8 years to fully recover. And it's efforting. Do the memory system very slow the first probably year, 6 to 8 months, and then continue to practice. And the best way to practice is to learn it and then teach it to somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. And then little by little, you just get better and better and better and better. And when I had been teaching it before any injuries, like 18 years of straight teaching, I was having abilities that I didn't have before, like extra sensitivity, like ESP. I could see pictures in my mind as thoughts, but I could see the pictures. I would just get information out of nowhere, and it would be accurate. And I'm so sensitive. I could get on an elevator with people and I'd hear music. I'd like feel music and say, are you a musician? Or, I see little screws and say, are you a plumber? And, are you a singer? And people would say, where are you getting that? I said, I don't know. It's in the air. I'm just picking it up out of the air. And at one point it scared me, and I kind of shut down a little bit because things were moving too fast. There was really moving too fast. But I had gone from being like, when I was 12 or 13 years old, all that interested me was Archie comic books, walking to the mall, getting clothes, and eating chocolate turtles and watching my favorite TV shows, except when my mom would basically read to me and my brother from books and say, why aren't you interested in, more things that are challenging for you? And after I started teaching and learning the memory system, I could read, I could concentrate better. I was more interested. I became more interested in traveling. I went to Peru. I went to Finland and Russia and Scandinavia. And I would just pick up the language very easily. And
Wow.
I could, and pantomime was already in my arsenal. So I would pantomime things with people, from another country. And it was really cute and really fun. And it's like my whole world opened up. And unfortunately, my mother passed away before she could have witnessed that for me. But I could feel she was, be very happy. When I teach seminars, I'd imagine her in the back of the room,
I love that.
because I was just, wanted her to see that the seeds that she planted came to fruition and were continuing. But I'm grateful now, being 68 and survived a second car accident that happened when I was walking as a pedestrian, New Year's in New York, and I got hit, sideswiped, and I didn't fall down at that time, but I did faint a couple times once I got to the hospital, and then another time just when I was doing house cleaning, I fainted, and it really messed me up. That was another 6 to 8 years of recovering.
Wow.
And then I had a time where I got exposed to chemicals and pesticides and paints and lacquers. And I was literally having like chemical dementia. And that's where I learned about NAD, IVs, and I learned about hyperbaric oxygen. And then I thought to myself, well, if I'm doing these treatments, I wonder what it would be to detox, with a colonic or with a detox foot bath, with an infrared sauna. And so I did a real intensive, in about 2.5 weeks, I did 10 NADs, about eight oxygen, where I would do the memory training in the oxygen. And then I did about 5 of the other protocols. And within 2.5 weeks, I got my brain back. And I thought, I need to share this with other people because they could get their brain back too. It's intense. And I realized that I wasn't just motivated, I was scared for my life.
Right.
And that's what drove me. It just drove me. Whereas if you take a regular person and you present this information to them, I don't find on the whole they will grab it right away.
Yeah.
I think there has to be something very severe or an activating event that happens, and then they'll try it, but then they still think it's very time consuming, and I was like, do you want your brain? Do you want to die? Or do you want to be happy, healthy, whole, and remembering where your room is, how to make things, how to talk on the phone, how to be yourself? And people don't really get the concept until they get threatened, and then they get confused who to talk to, who to believe. I had an Alzheimer's person say to me, why should I listen to you and not the doctor? And I said, because I'm the one that's here in your environment, seeing you twice a week for years at a time, and your doctor you have to go see the doctor in their environment. He doesn't see everything. I said, would you learn exercises from a doctor or from a physical therapist, or an exercise physiologist? And he said, okay, Vicki, I get your point. But the first time that I took my book, Love Remembers, and submitted it to an editor, she said, I can't get your book published. And I thought it was the writing. So I rewrote chapters and sent it back to her. She said, oh no, the writing is beautiful. It's because you're not an MD. And I said, if I was an MD, I wouldn't know the information that I know. I
Yeah.
only know the information I know because I was a memory expert of 18 years, lost my memory, regained my memory, regained it teaching memory to older adults and to Alzheimer's patients. And in the 2.5 years that I was at 9 different facilities teaching, none of the Alzheimer's and none of the older adults went down mentally. They went down
Wow.
physically, but nobody got worse.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So just think if you're, a teen or your 20s and you're already good and sharp, you would just become laser brain. And then you would be able to keep that and continue that throughout your life. They found some PhDs who had donated their brains to science at UCLA that actually had dementia and Alzheimer's in their 80s, but they were asymptomatic because they were so learned and had so much neural foliage, they didn't even know they had any problem.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you're right. We are humanity that is more reactive than proactive. We wait until life forces us to address something instead of, like you said, just when you're young and you're already still in the development phase. My head is kind of exploding just thinking of what better off would we be if we had all had access to this and if we had all done this, especially when you're young. But it's never too late. It's never too late. Like I want to sign my mom up for this. I want to do this because
Oh, great.
why wouldn't you want higher functioning and higher performance? And it sounds like you've found a way to really open up the mind. If you're picking up on languages immediately, I mean, that's quite a testimony. You hop in an elevator and you see things, you've really like cracked open the mind. And I'm completely fascinated.
Yeah, I've been wanting, for years to be able to work at a facility, like some kind of clinic or testing place where they could put electrodes on my brain while I'm doing the memory system and basically see what's happening in the brain while you're doing it. And then just be able to teach and teach and teach and teach people who would continue to practice a little bit every day so that you can see the growth after 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and be able to see all the continuation of the abilities. That's why I say if people even have Alzheimer's or dementia or brain injury or normal, that there's improvement little by little, all the time. But when you have a project where you're challenging yourself, like I was thinking, if I hadn't been teaching memory training for 2.5 years after the injury, I think I would have improved a little. But because I was working with the system hours every day, I was improving a lot.
Yeah.
And then when I was teaching, I was a consultant for the school system in San Diego, K through 12. So I taught about 120 classes, like 60. I was in 60 schools a year doing 2 one-hour programs. So that was like 120 hours in the school. So all the new schools, finding my way there, getting into the classroom, meeting all the different teachers and doing that for 5 years straight. My abilities were off the scale. I
Wow.
literally became what I had admired in other people that I always wished I could, but I didn't think I had the ability. But that's when I took off and started acting and painting and dancing and singing and moved to New York and, just really became unbounded with creativity.
Wow. I love this. I love this. So tell me a little bit about how you got to write the books that you wrote, and then kind kind of what brought us together. Somebody introduced me to your story about your brother.
Oh, so when I was brain injured after the first car accident where I got hit by the big rig truck, I have a friend that we met on a trip when we went to Russia together. We went to Russia during the Cold War to make friends with Russian people. Her name is Pamela Shandell. And she said, Vicki, I've got to help you. I've got to help you. And she was thinking and thinking and thinking. And she said, Holly Prado, who's now deceased, but she said, the writing class for Holly Prado, I'm going to get you in Holly's writing class. And you need to write a book about this whole memory program.
Oh.
And I went in the class and I said, I got hit by a truck. Before that, I had this fabulous memory. And now I can hardly write. And my teacher, Holly, said, just get it on the page and we'll help you and we'll help edit things for you. And so it took a month to write an article. You know, I'm back to writing an article in a day, 2 days, you know, getting
Okay.
it edited and having it
Okay.
ready on the third day now, thank God. But in those days, it took about a month. And she was so gracious and so gentle and so non-critical that it really opened me up. And then when I was working with the Alzheimer's patients, I would come back and tell them what was happening. And they said, Vicki, are you aware of what's going on? And I said, well, tell me what you mean. She said, you just got a woman who went from nodding her head to opening her eyes to talking.
Wow.
And then you just got a guy who asked for more food when he wouldn't talk at all. She said, you're getting nonverbal people to communicate. And I said, oh, well, that's just natural. That just happens all the time, you know? And she said, no, Vicki, this is like,
This is pretty outstanding.
yeah, this is like a really big deal. So she said, just go home. And even if you have to scrawl, just get it on the page of what you did today. So for 2.5 years, I was in her class literally for a decade. And she would bring in different books we would read together and then talk about it, which high level books, which it was hard for me to follow at first, but then I was able to get up on the conversation. And then each week, everyone would bring in a couple of pages and we'd share with the group and we would read and everybody would make comments and make little edits. So then I'd take them back and work with the edits. So after 2.5 years, I got better and better and better. In fact, the accident happened in 99, and in 2001 is when I first started working with the Alzheimer's patients, because it really was, I had to finish grad school first. I had to finish practicing being a therapist, and I couldn't remember what my students were saying, my clients were saying. So my supervisor was so nice. She said, just ask them if you can record it and get it transcribed and then bring that into the room with me. So everybody was very helpful to work with me and to get it done. So I started working in July of 2001. And by February of 2003, I was back to teaching full time again.
Wow.
And then in 2005 is when I got the job teaching drama, and I was so happy, and I stayed there for a decade.
Okay.
Until I ended up retiring. But you asked me a question, I just lost my train of thought.
I was wondering how you got started writing, and then the story about your
and then
brother.
how the book. So anyway, when I was continuing the writing class every Tuesday night, and then the writing got so much better, then I had to go back and rewrite the front. And then the class let me read my whole book to them, and they gave me edits. So I ended up editing the book about 8 times over.
Uh-huh.
And then I sent it off to see if I could get it published. And then when I thought the writing wasn't good enough, and she said, no, it wasn't the writing, your writing's lovely. Then I ended up publishing it almost like 8 years later.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I self-published it. And then I republished in 2001 because someone told me, oh, we'll help you. Well, oh no, what happened was my cat who had inspired me to publish it passed away. And I really loved this little Siamese. She lived to be 21 years old. Her name was
Oh my
Sasha.
goodness.
And so I had this beautiful picture of Sasha and me together that I sent out to my acting agent. I said, I want my cat to be on commercials. And so we had this beautiful picture of her with me. And I decided to republish the book with her, with writing about her, a tribute to her. And I called that They Can Still Remember to Love. So it's the same book, but I republished it with Sasha in it. And then what happened so then I just kind of went on and lived my life and was flourishing and, graduated. And to my big surprise, I went to Antioch, which was pass fail. And then I thought maybe I want to be a school psychologist. So they said, well, what's your GPA? And I said, I don't know. It was pass fail. And they said, well, you have to go apply and find out exactly what it was. And I got a 3.89 in
Wow.
graduate school.
Wow.
And I was going around, I called my brother, I said, I'm at 3.89, I'm smart. Oh my God, I'm smart. I didn't know. I didn't know. Yeah. So, and then when I started coming to Oregon, one of my professors was still living in Eugene, and I called him and said, I'm going to Gold Beach. And we met and we chatted. And now every year, I pretty much every year I come out here. And he said to me, you were one of the smartest people in the program. And I said, I had no idea. And I said, I wasn't making straight A's. He said, grades alone are not an indicator of how smart you are. So I said, gee, I never knew, because everyone always commented on how smart my brother was, that I thought, I'm just not as smart as my brother. But when I published the first book, my brother was so supportive of it. And he said, I don't mind that you wrote a book first. He said, it's okay with me for you to lead the trail. So anyway, what happened in April of 2020, I was in Oregon because I had to get out of LA because of all the toxicity, and I had had cancer from the toxicity. It doesn't run in my family at all. Genetically, there's no cancer. So I had cleaned out, and the doctor said, you need to get off the grid. You just can't afford any more exposure. So I was living in a little trailer. I had 2 cats at the time. No, I had 1 cat at the time. Sasha had passed away. And I was doing infrared saunas every day and detox foot baths. And I had talked to my brother on the phone one night. I said, you don't sound right. He said, I feel a little weak. And I said, well, maybe he doesn't like drinking water. So I said, well, maybe you're dehydrated. Why don't you go get an IV of saline solution? And so he didn't want to walk. It was late at night. And so he called the ambulance to come, and we chatted a bit. And he said he'd call me the next day when he was released from the hospital. So no call came. I called his place, no call, no answer. And this went on for about a day and a half. And then I get a phone call, and it's like, hi, Vicki, this is Dr. So-and-so. I'm calling you from Mount Sinai Hospital. We have your brother here. He's in hospice.
Oh,
He has about 5 days to live.
what?
And I said, well, I want to come see him. And she said, no, it's too dangerous. We have bodies, like hundreds of bodies are dying a day. And we think it's too dangerous for you. So we'll give him a phone.
Wow.
And you can keep him company over the phone and watch him die. And I said, let me think about this and I'll call you back. And I went and took a walk on the beach. And my brother and I were raised to be very close. Our mother wanted us to be close. She gave him presents from me when I was in the womb. Said, this is from your
Oh,
baby sister, and she'll be, a good companion for you, and she'll laugh at all your jokes, and, she'll be fun to have around. And so she, gave him all this before I was even born, so that he would welcome me and not be jealous of me. And so we just grew to have a close relationship. And I'm walking on the beach and I'm thinking about us. And then I thought about my life without him, and I literally panicked. And I thought, I do not want to be alone in this world. I do not want not to have him. So I called them back and I said, listen, I'm coming. I'm coming. I understand the risks, but I feel like I'll be safe. And I had talked to a spiritual teacher, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. And he said, what do you mean you don't know? What do you really want? I said, I want to be there, but they telling me it's too dangerous. He said, I'll put you in the light of the Most High for the highest good, and you'll be safe. So with that, I flew to be with him, and they let me see him where they weren't even letting husbands and wives see each other. So we were really lucky. And first he didn't recognize me, with the mask and the
yeah.
gown and everything. So I pulled my mask off, and he went, Vicky, you're here? And I said, yeah, I'm here. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. And he took my hand and he said, I want you to feed me the nutrition I need to help my immune system fight this. And I said, okay. And I immediately called Dr. Timothy A. Binder, and I said, Dr. Binder, Gary's in trouble. This is what's going on. Can you give him the nutritional support that he needs? And Dr. Binder is a homeopath, naturopath, acupuncturist, and chiropractor. And I've been seeing him since my Boulder days. So we just stayed in contact with him because he was so helpful. And he helped me through all my accidents and Epstein-Barr and tinctures and everything. And he's still helping me even when he's retired now. So he stopped everything. And he told me exactly what to buy my brother, what it would do for him, how it would benefit his body. And I went to 3 different stores and got everything. And then I remembered there was a nutritional drink that a gentleman with ALS drank every day, and he's still alive today. And it's called Kate Farms. Okay. So I ordered that, and the doctor approved the Kate Farms. They approved 4 of the 12 nutrients. So I got the rest of nutrients and put it in my bra, and then walked into the hospital like, hi, here's my daily visit. And gave it to my brother, and he took it, and then he took the Kate Farms drink and he drank it, and then he went like this and he made a Popeye sign. And so I knew we were on the right track. And so I did that for 10 days. And then they called me and they said, well, he's off hospice. He's improved so much, but he's still on the respirator. But now that he's not dying, you can't see him. So I called Dr. Binder and said, now what do I do? And he said, well, put all the nutrients in the drinks. So every morning I'd wake up and spend half an hour, or so putting everything in, and then taking it to the hospital, and then waiting until a nurse would come, sometimes half an hour, sometimes as much as an hour. And then they would take the drinks up to him, and then I'd call him to make sure he got them, and he drank it. And then the 28th day came, and he was able to get off the respirator, and he was 70 at the time. So they were calling him the Miracle Man, and they would applaud him as they wheeled him out to go to rehab, because when you've been in bed for that long, he couldn't hold his head up by himself. He couldn't walk. And they didn't let you go to the bathroom. You had to poop and pee in the bed. Wow. And sometimes it would be hours before they would clean it up. So there were a lot of trials and tribulations that went along with it. But he went on to rehab, and then I left, went back to Oregon, got my kitty out of the kennel. And I was like, I had a cat who was 18 at the time, and Dr. Siggy. And I said, Dr. Siggy, I'm so sorry. I thought it'd be 10 days. It's been a month. And he looked like, he's ready to have, he just was ready to come home, you know. And so we spent a month a month while he was in rehab because I couldn't see him anyway. And then the cat and I together went back to his home. And then a friend of mine named Rod gave me furniture from his aunt's house. His aunt had passed away. So he gave me a dresser and a closet and a bed. And we put that in my brother's little studio and brought him home. And it was amazing. You know, if you come from the hospital, normally you can't wait just to get to bed. My
Yeah.
brother went through all of his mail. He went through organizing all of his papers and then watched TV. And I said, your energy is off the scale.
That's
And,
incredible.
it was amazing. Let me turn that off. Hold on. Meant to do that before. So I said, you know, no long COVID, no heart issue. He had smoked at one point, so there was a little scarring on the lung. But even to this day, his energy is amazing. And he said every time he visits, he's healthier because I'm always bringing him some new nutritional thing to try. So
So
now
no long COVID, no.
nothing,
Wow, that's
nothing.
incredible.
So a friend of mine said, you know, you need to make a video of all the nutrients you gave your brother to help people, even if you help one person, and put it on YouTube. And so I did. So it's on YouTube now under youtube.com, Gary Mizell, How I Saved My Brother's Life. And so people can get that on YouTube for free. And then my friend Rod called me and he said, you know, you need to write a book about this. And I said, a book? And he said, yeah, this needs to be made into a movie. And you have to have a book to get the movie. And so I said to my brother, Rod says I need to make a movie and write a book about this. And he goes, I'm a nobody. You're a nobody. Nobody wants to read about a nobody. And I said, no, this is a really powerful story, you know, how nutrition saved you and, you know, different than the allopathic medicine. And so Rod kept calling and I kept saying, Gary doesn't want it. And he said, no, this is really important. So finally I said to my brother, I'm going to write it. I'm going to write it, but I really want your support with this. And he said, well, then call my friend Manny, who used to be an agent, and see if Manny thinks it's a good idea. So I told Manny and Manny said, this is a great idea. He said, people love an underdog. They love it when somebody's at the brink of death and they come back to life and how you did it and all the trials and tribulations involved. He said, just make it a page turner, you know, just make it a page turner. So I went into a boot camp called the 10-10-10 Raymond Aaron group, which is a wonderful group. And then they helped me with laying all the format out, the front cover, the back cover, the titles, the chapters. And then for content, I took a class in Denver at the Lighthouse. It's called the Lighthouse Workshop and group. And so I was able to get feedback from people. They were like, why is your brother calling you and not the doctor first, you know, when he's on his way to the hospital? And, you know, tell us more about you and your brother. And then there were moments that my brother has a little bit of a bipolar schizoaffective thinking. And so they said, no, include when he thought the CIA and the FBI were mixing up his meals, you know, getting his meals mixed up and messing with them. They said, no, that bring that in. So they were able to help me flesh out more and add in more. And now people say it's a really good book and it's a really fast read and they're really, really pleased with it. So that's on, well, on YouTube now, we actually have my brother speaking a little soundbite and me speaking with the book had just gotten up on the New York Times, not New York Times, Times Square, on the billboard in Times Square through Angel Tussey. She had a group of writers and she said, if you can get to New York, we've got room for one more. And so I went, and my brother's in New York. So he came to all the festivities with me and saw the book on the billboard. And so it's really exciting. Really
I
exciting.
can only imagine how exciting that must have been. Just the fact that you can celebrate that he's alive and he's doing so well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
I
really
celebrate
good.
the fact that you got through the hospital and you got anything approved, because those are not the stories that I've heard. So I'm thrilled to hear that not only did they let you in, but they actually approved some of the things that you asked to offer him. That those are not the stories that I've heard. And I'm grateful to hear this, because
Yeah, we
kudos
were
to them.
lucky. We were really lucky. I also called all the prayer groups I knew, yoga prayer group, healer prayer group, individual people, enlightened people. I had, I was just,
You got a little
it's
army with you, right?
yeah, it's easy to advocate when you're fighting for somebody else. It's different for myself, if I have to do something, I have to talk myself into it. But someone needs help, I'm like, oh, I'm ready. Let's go help so and so. Let's go do it.
So I'm curious, has he ever done any of your retraining, any of your training?
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing the memory system early on, I taught him the memory system, and he even does things himself at night. He will replay our house that we had in Tulsa, and he'll go through each room and recall things. And then when we're together, he'll say, do you remember what was in the living room? And I'll say, we had the planter. And he said, what color were the chairs? I said, pink. And he goes, what color was the couch? And I'd say, white. And he said, what color was the carpet? And I'd say, blue. And then he'd say, do you remember, what was in the front yard? And I'd say, the ivy. And so we would do stuff like that. And he said, Vicki, since I stopped doing, any kind of other alcohol or pot or anything like that, he said, I'm having the reverse. I'm having the remembering disease now. He said, I'm having the reversal. And he said, my memory is so much better now that, he's taken vitamins again, and he drinks juices. He's getting a little less sugar than he used to really enjoy sugar a lot. And now and then he used to smoke pot and have a beer or two, but he hasn't done any of that in about 12 years.
Okay.
And he said his memory is just really good. And then 2 winters ago, he needed a new hip, but the voices told him that it would all grow back. And when I got to town, he was literally crippled. And this was the winter of 2021. And he said, I can't believe the voices would, lead me astray. And I said, well, what did they tell you? And he said, they said I'd get better and better every day. And I said, well, you will. I'm here. We'll get you a new hip. You'll get better and better every day. And then I paid for him to have a session with Howard Wills, who's a healer in Hawaii. He's amazing. And then my brother, I took him to the doctor and they took a picture, and he couldn't believe that the femur had like fused together. And so then he said, okay. And then we found him the best surgeon, all covered under Medicare, who only works at the hospital of special surgery. So we're taking him through all the steps, and then we got in the cab, and we're out about half a block, and all of a sudden in my mind, I see an arm, and I see getting a blood draw. And I said to the cab driver, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We forgot one more step before his surgery tomorrow. Can you, please, I apologize. Take us back to the hospital. My brother turned to me and he said, what just happened? I said, I saw the picture of your arm and the syringe. And he said, the memory system.
Yeah.
He's like, the picture just popped right up. And I was able to recall. He wouldn't have had surgery the next day if I'd missed that step.
Yeah. The pre-surgical labs to make sure he could tolerate. Yeah.
Yeah, he had like 8 different things, and he had to see the physical therapist, and how to sit on the special toilet and, how to, all the
Yeah.
things I had to buy and all the things we had to do. And so I had forgotten. I was just like,
Yeah.
okay. And then boom, there it was. So
Nice.
yeah, he uses it. And, and then when I was starting to do the podcast and stuff, and I did one of them from his apartment when I was there in June for the Billboard celebration. He said, Vicki, I'm so excited to see you, doing these podcasts and, meeting and greeting everybody and doing book signings. He said, it reminds me of you in your 20s. When you were just getting started with the memory system. He said, it just makes me so happy to see you doing all this.
Wow.
And he said, and your energy is so good. I
That's
said,
beautiful.
NAD. I said, I had an NAD IV before the trip.
I'm a
So,
fan as well. Yeah.
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 So, I have a girlfriend, she's 70, and she said, I don't know how you do it. And I said, I can't not do it. I said, I feel like I'm 68 going on 12. And I said, I feel like my life has come to everything I've done has come to this just to start this anew, and she said, you're starting a life at 68 like you're a 20-year-old.
Why not? Why
Yeah.
not? Age.
Age is just a number, and part of it is genetics. My uncle was working into his 90s. My cousins are in their 80s. They're still working. It's just something. If you don't die off in your 60s from dementia, then you kind of live to your 90s. I found out my dad's father's brother lived to be 102. So I just need to keep up and detox like you were talking about.
Yes. Yeah. The one thing that I would encourage anyone listening to do is, aside from exercising the muscle, there's the cliche, use it or lose it, right? And that holds true with our brain too. It's not just our physical body and our physical muscles, but when we don't use certain parts of our brain, they atrophy too, just like any other muscle. And if we don't use it, we will lose it. You see it happen all of the time. And, just in the last couple of years, I've seen changes in my own brain when I try to do something that I haven't done since I was in school. It takes a minute to get that muscle working again. But the biggest thing that has had the most impact in my life has been detox. And detox can absolutely be done wrong. It can actually do a lot more damage than it can do good if you don't have all of the things set up just so, right? And that's why a lot of people have become afraid of the word detox, because it can make you feel absolutely horrible. And if you are already really sick, it can actually make you more sick. So
Yeah.
the more we can understand about regenerative detoxification, the better. So I would tell anybody, don't just dive in blind, not knowing anything about anything, kind of like you wouldn't just pick up 500 pounds and blow out your back. It's no different.
Right. Yeah. They need to
in with
clean
a
out the
solid
colon
plan.
first. I think it's the colon first, then the liver, and
Well,
then
you want to make sure all of the detox first and foremost, you want to make sure all of the detox pathways are actually open, because most people aren't. You mentioned the colon. So many people are imbalanced in the gut. 90% of the people in this world are imbalanced in the gut. So if you're not eliminating, if you're not urinating well, if you're not sweating much, if you're not like, exercise doesn't just help us sweat, but we exhale. We actually detox through our lungs too. And believe it or not, tears, crying itself can be a detox. There's a lot of ways that our body can help us detox. Of course, the three obvious are sweating, urination, and bowel movements, right? But first and foremost, if those aren't working well, you are not going to be happy with your detox. It's going to be very bumpy and it's going to be very uncomfortable.
Right, that's why when I was doing the NAD with the hyperbaric oxygen and the memory, I did a colonic, then I would do the infrared sauna, then I would do the detox foot bath, then I would do another colonic, another infrared sauna, another detox foot bath every day that I was doing the NAD.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was
That's-
intense.
Yeah.
It was intense, but my gosh, what a change it made. I think anyone who had Alzheimer's or dementia would do that for, that intensely for 2.5 weeks, would get their brain back.
Really.
Yeah, I really do. And in fact, we're going to be rolling out the Jumpstart the Brain program with a woman named Kim Rivera in Denver. Her clinic is called K Wellness. And she has the NAD and the hyperbaric oxygen and the cryotherapy and the red light and the detox foot bath. She doesn't have the colonic, but there's another place not far from there, and just roll it out.
And if people are comfortable doing that at home, you can do coffee enemas at home. You can do just warm water enemas at home. It's not quite the same as a colonic, but I know, and like in my area, there is no one in a 100-mile radius that offers that. There's no one in a 300-mile radius that offers that. So, I'm kind of on my own in that category, unless I want to travel.
Right. Yeah. You can order a detox foot bath on your own. You can do coffee enemas on your own. Those are all wonderful things. And you can take good walks. And the memory training is available. I have it available on audio series, MP3s. I teach classes. I teach through Zoom. I teach over the phone. And
So do you usually do individual, or do you primarily do classes, or it really doesn't matter, you'll do it all?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll do it all. I have individuals, and then the class that I'm doing starting tomorrow, people can contact me if they email me at vmizel, V like for the V for Vicky, MIZEL at AOL.com. I can send them the flyer, and they would have to get on today. And if they have questions, they can call me. I'm old fashioned. I like the phone, 917-547-8822. They can contact me.
Okay. I'll publish this today then, so hopefully we can get some people exposed to this right away.
That'd be
I
great.
usually publish on Sundays, but if your class is tomorrow, we'll get that going right away and see.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank
I mean,
you.
if we can reach at least one person who really wants to dive into this, and I mean, I'm already thinking of my friend. She has 2 kids who both have concussions, and they've had post-concussive what do you call that?
Syndrome.
Thank you. Yeah. And they're young. I mean, her oldest is only 23. So they've got plenty of time to reverse this. And I already want to introduce this and see if she wants to share this with her kids, and see if they're even available tomorrow, if they can check into it and see if they can do that. Do you feel it's fairly affordable? Is it?
Oh, it's unbelievably affordable. It's usually $397 and includes and then the tapes are separate.
Okay.
This is all for $97, including the whole MP3 audio series, which is $197. So this is sort of
that is very affordable.
Yeah, I just really wanted people who are struggling to be able to afford it and be able to do it. So it's going to be from 10 to 1 Mountain Time tomorrow.
Okay.
And so that would be 11 to 2 Central Time.
Okay.
And then it'll be the following Saturday as well. Okay. And I'll send you a flyer.
2 days of live and instruction, essentially.
Correct. Yes.
And then as a takeaway, they've got files that they can refer to continue using however much they want to use it.
Yeah, I'll give them the whole MP3s when they finish the course.
So are the MP3s of what you're doing tomorrow and next week? Or are they already pre-established?
They're pre-established. The
Yeah, okay.
MP3s are the method of association, the sounds like method, names, large amounts of information, numbers, absent-mindedness, relaxation, receptivity. So that was my original first project, was putting the tapes, the
Okay.
MP3s together.
I am
Yeah.
absolutely fascinated. So one more question that I was thinking of early. Do you have any idea how this might help people through trauma, PTSD?
One of the things with PTSD is the recurring information that the amygdala picks up and freaks out with.
Right.
So the way to help is to see the end result that you want to have happen and repeat that picture. So for example, when I'm driving, because I've had numerous car accidents, I'll have this image of cars literally coming out of nowhere, jumping into my car. You know, that's the unreal
Yes.
anxiety image.
The stress response.
Right. So what I'll do is kind of put a white light around me, see myself getting to my destination, see myself driving comfortably, peacefully, seeing all the cars around me stopping, obeying the lights, the rules, and then being very aware of my shoulders not tensing up, you know, doing this, but just staying really relaxed, breathing deeply, getting to my destination calm, relaxed, and peaceful. So you repeat that picture over and over again, as opposed to the anxious image.
Yep.
So
And
that's
that's
a way
what
to do it.
all of the people teach is essentially creating the outcome that you want, not the outcome that you don't.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right. Yeah, it's
Because
really where
when
you
we're-
focus.
Yeah, when we're in that stress response, we are continually creating what we don't want, right?
Right.
And the challenge is to like you said, to get out of that and really start creating the outcomes you do want to see, the outcomes you
Right.
need, really.
Right.
You need an outcome where all of the drivers obey all of the rules and do all the right things.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I have another appointment that
Yeah.
I think I was supposed to be at 11:30.
All right. Well, it's good. We were just about finished anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this today with all of your info. And for now, I say thank you very much, but I would like to pick this up again another time.
I would love to too. I would love
Yes.
to too. In fact, after my other appointment, I will call you and
We'll set
I
up.
will get, yeah, that would be
Perfect.
great.
Perfect.
You're
I
a
look forward
delight.
to it.
You're a delight, and I want to order all those products too.
Wonderful. We will talk
Okay.
really soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now,
All right.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.